I'm just going to pretend it's here. My name's Laura Heywood. I'm wearing my t-shirt, BroadwayGirlNYC, and we're going to talk beautiful today. Thank you guys so much for being here, all of you and all of you. I like to call you the beautiful people. Welcome to BroadwayCon. All right, so you guys are going to share mics. Let's just start by going down the line. Evan, we'll start with you. Introduce yourself. Tell us who you play in beautiful the Carole King Musical.
Oh, okay. I'm Evan Todd, and I play Jerry Goffin, which is Carole King's husband and writing partner.
I'm Chilina Kennedy, and I play Carole King.
She was a writer.
I'm Jessica Keenan Wynn, and I play Cynthia Weil.
I'm Ben Jacoby, and I play Barry Mann.
If you guys want to take the mics off and make it easier.
No, I really like sharing.
Yeah, just squeeze in tight. These are all real people, and I assume that some of you have met your real-life counterparts, if not all of you. Can you talk about what it means to play a real-life person as opposed to playing a fictional character?
I'm going to start. I have met Carole King a few times, and we got a chance to work together on the Today Show, and she was incredibly kind and gracious. Every single time I've met her, she's been amazing. I feel an immense amount of pressure to play Carole King, because I think people have such an intimate relationship with her and with that time period in their lives, especially people who lived through, the 60s and 70s and were, in high school when Tapestry was popular and playing on the radio. She also has such she has such a unique way about her and a unique sound and a very, just a very special way of singing her material and of presenting herself in the world. So I wanted to do that justice. So I think when I first started, especially because I took over from Jessie, who won the Tony, it was a lot of pressure and a lot of pressure just in terms of playing her, and because she's still very much around and alive and still writing. I wanted to live up to all the hype, but since then I've been able to just kind of trust that I can make it my own, and just to play what's on the page and not play people's expectations or my own expectations. That's a long answer, but that's sort of getting
Great
to
answer.
nutshell.
Yeah, great answer. Anybody else have anything to add? Have you guys met your real-life counterparts?
I haven't met Barry Mann. I've met Carole King.
Which I love, because I love them every night. I'm like, or every other night, I'm like, Ben, they might be in the audience.
You still have the pressure of sort of carrying on the legacy of this person's life, but unlike Carole, I think the rest of us, you guys can speak to it too, but the pressure's taken off a little bit because, Barry didn't have an iconic recording career, so you don't really have to look or sound as much like Barry, because most people don't really know what he looked and sounded like as much.
He's still alive.
Yes, he's still alive. You're right. I'm playing him in the past, but he's still alive. Very much. He was in the show. He's sort of characterized as a hypochondriac, and I think someone told me he said, I didn't even realize I was a hypochondriac until I saw the show. So it's amped up a little bit. At a certain point you start playing the character Barry Mann as much as you play real Barry Mann.
What would it mean to you if he did show up at the stage door?
I wouldn't want to know. Yeah, I'd be glad if he just showed up at the stage door. That'd be better than him saying I'm coming tonight. Yeah, that's terrifying because he's him.
I know. Chilina has a great story about Carole not telling her, or at your request, right?
I was just about to say, yeah. When I first joined the company, I got an email from a Carole Dash, and I was like, Carole Dash? I don't have any friends named Carole. Oh my God, it's Carole King, and I freaked out. And she was like, Dear Miss Kennedy, I hear you're great in the show. I'm going to come and see you. Do you want to know when I'm coming? And I replied, Dear Miss King, please do not tell me when you are coming. You fall over. So, and of course, at the time, Scott Campbell, who's playing Jerry Goffin, used to tease me every night. He's like, anytime there's any kind of commotion, he's like, Carole's out there, Carole's out there.
I sometimes see a woman with large yellow hair in the audience, and I'm always like, is that Carole King? Anyone with blonde hair, and I think it's Carole King. So Jerry passed away when, was it during previews, or when the show had actually opened? So after it opened, Jerry passed away, so I never actually got to meet him. And it's also interesting taking over for a part. You don't have an out of town, and then 5 weeks of rehearsal, and then 4 weeks of previews where I got to like read the entirety of Carole King's book and research as much as I could. Like, it was like, no, I found out I had an audition 5 days later, had to learn the material, and then 10 days later was doing it, was like opening, or doing my Broadway debut. So there's a little less pressure, like for the reasons you just said, not to make it perfect and not to make it exactly like the person, because no one really knows him that well except those that were closest to him. And you really just kind of have to go off of what's on the page and what's written in the character that is somewhere between the real person and a fictional creation for this piece that's now like serving a purpose.
Jessica, I'd love to hear your take on playing a real person and whether or not you have met her.
I met her once. It was so brief too. You were there, right? It was right when like the first month we had joined, maybe, or something, and we all kind of walked down the stairs together to take our, we start to change at the end of the show, and she just comes in through one of the side doors with her blonde wig and sunglasses, and she takes one, she's like, hi, and I was like, oh my God, no. And we were all kind of saying hi, and she said hi to Jared Spector at the time, and she said hi to Scott and Chilina, and then she turns to me, and I was like, hi, Cynthia, it's nice to meet you. And we tweeted at each other many times, bonded over being vegan, and then she hugged me, and she was like, you make me look so good. And I was like, oh, thank you. And then she turned away and started talking to someone else, and I was like, I don't want to hear anything else. I just want to walk away. That's the only thing I heard. But she's a dream, and she's very active, like I said, on Twitter, and she's so supportive of the show. They all are. Carole even tweeted, it was the 4th year anniversary just a couple weeks ago, and she tweeted her support and love for that. I think she really does love and cherish this show, as we all do.
Yeah, Chilina got a congratulatory email from Carole, and I got a congratulatory tweet.
And we got nothing.
Yeah, well, that's about to change. I think you have a whole room full of people who are going to start a tweet campaign to get that congratulations. What's life like backstage at Beautiful?
Miserable.
Use the mic, please.
You think it really is so dependent on what role you're playing. Because I realized very quickly, I was like, wow, every time I'm off stage, the rest of the cast is on stage. And every time I'm on stage with Carole or these guys, everyone's off stage. And my dressing room's on the other side of the theater. So like if I wanted to, I could essentially do the whole show and interact with very few people in the cast. Which is weird, because you're like, wait, we've been working together a year, and the amount of time we've spent together is pretty minimal. So we like hang out afterwards, there's like Broadway bowling, there's like fun things that we get to do. But most of my time is spent on stage with Carole and then backstage with these guys. And it's really fun, actually. Everyone's really pleasant to work with, and it's a really warm, wonderful environment to be in, which I've been told is not always the case in a lot of casts. So we're really
I think I know more. My whole show is with Ben for the most part. Like we are like one character at times, and I speak to Ben more than I speak to my mother. I think you know more about me and like what I've had for dinner and how it's affecting me more than anyone else knows. But
He's not the only one. We all.
I know. Sorry.
It affects you.
Listen, I have a hard digestive system, so Ben. I find that the backstage, like everything is so choreographed. So you're on stage, there's lots of moving parts. When you get, when Ben and I are on stage and then we drift off on a piano, then I have to walk around all these crew guys that are installing the next set. You have to run and get changed. Like there really is a choreography. And I was thinking about this the other day. I always run around this one corner right before Vermont. And if anyone was just standing there, I could take myself out or take other people out, because it's just like, it's muscle memory. Like I was just away, funny enough, I was just away from the show for 6 months, and I went back into it with 1 day of rehearsal, and it's amazing how it all came back through my body. Like even the backstage business and giving him a hard time, and it's.
Yeah, that came back really natural.
Thank you.
I want to hear some stories about this giving you hard time backstage. Let's call her out. What does Jessica do that?
Well, you know what Ben and I did recently, which I think you might know. This sounds like we're really bad actors, but we're not. I've been doing the show for three years off and on. You've been doing it for almost 2. And so we're on stage together all the time, and there are moments when we're on stage when we can like have a moment of like, you know, bit, like, and sometimes we'll be like, did you order takeout yet? No, okay, all right. Or we'll have the intention in our faces, but we'll just be talking about like, did you watch the, did you listen to that new podcast? Yeah. And so we decided the other night, Sunday night, we decided to ad-lib only in character. The worst
like
idea.
Professionals.
Yeah, like you should do. The worst idea we could. So there's a moment where we're standing in the doorway and Carole is singing "Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow," pitching the song to Donnie in his office. And we stand in the doorway and she finishes and we both kind of look a bit defeated because it's a really good song. So we look at each other and we're just like,
Wow, Cynthia, how are we ever going to beat this?
I don't know, Barry. That was a really good song. Maybe I should twist and dance and really sell it.
Maybe he wants an up-tempo.
Let's give it to him. That was our whole show. And it was actually one of my favorite moments. I think one of my favorite memories.
Yeah, I mean, I will say, in defense of our sort of unprofessional when you do a show for as long as we've been doing it, I think it's best to have a real conversation, whether it's about whether or not you're eating dinner or not. Because at a certain point, it's going to look false when you're saying, "Oh boy, Cynthia, like I think we better get our song together." It's better if you look invested in one another, like you're having a real conversation. So have a real conversation. If no one else can hear it.
Yeah. You never know when somebody's going to be in the audience who reads lips, though. I've heard some horror stories about ensemble members having conversations about what they're doing after the show and having lip reader. Not at Beautiful, but at another long-running Broadway show. I heard a very specific story about that.
I don't ever like Broadway lip reading.
Yeah,
YouTube videos.
I feel like that would be an amazing Twitter account if anybody reads lips to just like go and watch and transcribe what people are actually talking about.
Our sound people are brilliant too, where you can, say your line and then they immediately cut you out so that they won't pick up. I'm fucking giving away all these horrible secrets.
Do you guys do that too? Do you switch back and forth between being in character and out of character on stage?
Much more professional than Ben and I.
Not really.
On the record, the answer is no.
Well, okay, so when I joined the cast, I was doing it with Abby Mueller, and we had 6 months where we were doing it while Chilina was doing it in Canada, which is where she's from. And Abby and I would sometimes switch back and forth, or whatever. But no, when we started doing it, we just constantly sort of stayed in character. We kind of have the same conversations over and over again, so maybe there is a point in which it's like we could have a conversation about something else. But no, I think for the most part we stay in it. And I feel like we do because you're Carole King in Beautiful, the Carole King musical, and it feels like there's so much momentum and so many, you're in almost every scene, like to jump back and forth. How about you talk about that?
Well, that's interesting because I do feel a bit like I'm in solitary confinement or like an under-socialized dog sometimes. Because I don't really get out and see anybody. I'm literally by myself, and the only people I see, like I spend time with Evan, and thank God he's such a nice person because we really, it's lovely to actually get along with your co-star. It's really, really sweet. And I spend, a little bit of time with you, but hardly any at all. It's really mostly Evan. And then the woman who does my wigs and the woman who does my, who's my dresser. I spend the most time with them. They're the ones who know all the horrible details about my life that it's probably too much. But anyway, they are the ones that I spend a lot of time with, and so they actually make things really sweet for me. Like I have this exit that I always do when I run to go to the bathroom in Act 2 that I've created, because there's no space in Act 2 to actually have a pee, so I've actually designed this little window, and they're like, "You can do it!" And I'm like, "Go!" So Jessica's dressing room. But literally, if I only have, it's very stressful. The first time I did it, I was sweating. I was so nervous I was going to miss my entrance. So anyway, my dresser and the woman who does my wigs, they started doing these little sort of things for me to kind of encourage me to go fast. So they'll build like a little bridge, and I'll have to go under it. They'll create a little thing where I have to high five them. And then on my last show before I went to Canada, they were all dressed up as beavers and they had a Canadian flag. They were like, "Go, go, go!" It's the sweetest thing I've ever experienced. They're amazing. So they keep it really fun for me. Even if it's just the little things, they make all the difference.
I feel like the natural next question is about things that have maybe gone wrong on stage. Like little, in theater everything's different every night. It's live, there's thousands of people out there watching. Are there any mishaps that you either were able to cover up on stage or maybe that the audience was able to catch?
I have a fun one that I was just reminded of before we went out here. When Carole Lindsay was filling in for Jessica for 6 weeks. Was it 6 weeks?
6 months.
Oh my god, 6 months. Sorry. Oh my god, time goes by so fast. Anyway, when Carole was on, we got stuck together on stage after You've Got a Friend. So I think our jewelry, or my jewelry, got caught in her sweater, and we weren't able to I hugged her, and then we were like, and she was like, oh no, and I was like, oh my god. And here we are, we have to go on to the next cue, but we literally could not come apart, which was hilarious. And so we took an extra 30 seconds just trying to get out of each other's costumes. That was fun.
I assume the audience was aware that was happening?
I mean, kind of. I think we hit it pretty well. There was other stuff going on, and they sort of took over the focus while we tried to get unplugged. So I don't know. I mean, I think they probably did, but it wasn't a big deal. I mean, it always seems like a bigger deal when you're on stage, because you're like, oh god, how long is this going to take?
I love it when stuff like that happens at the theater. Do you guys? Like, I never want anybody to get hurt, but I love being reminded that, oh my gosh, this isn't a movie. They're really up there.
I pretty much skipped an entire scene one time because I had gotten really sick and my mom was in town. And I'm like, well, I can't not go on because my mom is in town. It's her birthday. And it was the last scene before intermission. And, I mean, spoiler alert, I say that I want to have an affair with Janelle. But there's a whole scene and monologue that leads up to that. And it's just me talking. And so I got about 2 sentences in, and I was like, Carole was like, what? You're not making any sense, Jerry. And I just go, I want to be with Janelle too. And I just jumped to the last line. And everyone was like, okay, well that's the end of the play. That's the end of Act 1. We just cut right to the chase. Luckily, I don't think anyone really noticed, but it definitely, I've never been more. You go into like the white room, we call it, where you just sort of go, and you can't hear or think about anything. Like, I don't know what the next line is. I don't know where I'm at. 5 minutes have passed and it's been 3 seconds. So that's probably my worst.
I think the Shirelles noticed too. We're like, you don't really have a whole lot of time between the 5 days. I'm like, oh my god!
The lights just are like flashing because they're trying to get to the right cue.
Is there any repercussions for that? Like, do you get written up or anything?
Well, I was really upset about it, right? My job is to do a good job and to do a good show, and my mom wasn't watching, and I was really upset. And when I came off, the show's been running a while. It's not like it was in previews or the New York Times was there or whatever. But I came off, and both the stage manager and even the dressers just kind of give you this look of it's okay. This happens. It's live theater. You get to do it tomorrow, which was very sweet.
And then your mom's like, I thought you had more lines than that.
My mom was wasted by intermission. Like Mom and Carole King Musical.
Moms do love this musical.
Oh, it's a mom musical.
Could I also just, sorry, I'm so sorry, you probably had a story, didn't you?
We still have half an hour, so we've got time for.
I just wanted to also if this makes you feel better at all, this is not the same thing, but my first show back after being in Canada, we had a totally different schedule in Toronto than we did. I only joined the tour just for the Toronto leg of it. And we had an 8-show week, but it was 2 on Wednesday, 2 on Saturday, 1 on Sunday. So my first show back, I think, was a Thursday, maybe? I don't know, I can't remember, but it was a 7 o'clock show. And in my mind, I thought it was an 8 o'clock show because of the schedule. So literally my first show back, I hadn't been on the Broadway stage in a good 6.5 months. And I'm napping, I'm like, oh, I'll have lots of time, I'm getting up early, I'll be able to go and warm up and say hi to everybody, you know. And I think it was, what time was the show? 7 o'clock. So it was 6:30, and I was waking up around 6:30, which was the half-hour call, right? And I was thinking, ooh, I'll be able to take a shower and just kind of ease into my performance. And I get this call from I get a text from our stage manager, all capitals. Where are you? And I was like, oh my god! And so I call him, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I'm on my way. He's like, get in the cab. And I literally am running out the door. I'm trying to organize childcare for my baby. I'm in a cab. I'm please get me to the Sondheim as soon as possible. And he's like, I'm not gonna get you there. I'm so sorry, there's too much traffic. It's better to take a subway. So he literally drops me off at 66 and I'm on a local train, pin curling my hair on the subway. And I'm on the train and I'm like, okay, just breathe, you're gonna make it. I think I had like 10 minutes, okay, before the show starts.
And this is your first show back?
My first show back on Broadway. And then to make things even worse, I hear the conductor go, I'm sorry everybody, there's going to be a delay. And I'm like, oh my God. I literally made it with, I think I made it with 3 minutes to spare. They had just called places when I arrived at the theater. And because of my incredible dresser and my amazing person who does the wig, they're both unbelievable. I was ready in I think 2 minutes and I made it on stage on time.
And she never slept again.
My favorite memory is, well, okay, so not to throw anyone under the bus, but this has happened once in 2 years. But if you've seen the show, a major set piece is the piano that moves around and on its own, you know. Well, there was one show, and we knew beforehand. You watched it? No. They knew beforehand that like something was wrong and we weren't going to have it. So they made the announcement like, ladies and gentlemen, you'll be seeing Beautiful tonight, but it's going to be a little different, and the piano is not working, and I don't know, I'll never forget watching you know, there's a moment where you start playing Will You Love Me Tomorrow in your house, and it gradually, you know, you move across the stage and you're in Donnie's office playing it for Donnie. Just watching you stand up and I'd like to know, walking along with this piano that's being moved by stagehands.
This is the understudy piano, right? Like there's the understudy piano, so normally the regular piano is an automated robot, and this understudy piano was just like a regular piano. So they had to literally, stagehands had to come out and move the bench and move the piano and hit to like tippy-toe while still playing. It stopped the show, we got applause, it was incredible.
Well, the people moving the piano were absolutely brilliant. I mean, like, it was the right spot every time. They knew exactly when to run on, and like, it was as seamless as it could have been, but it was definitely an interesting show.
Well, I was just gonna say live theater, right? Like, I was in the audience because I just joined the show and I was watching the track, right? I was watching my character to learn what it was. And so to hear Peter come on and say, you're gonna see Beautiful, but there's an issue, and the whole audience goes like, oh no!
They love it though. Come on, we all love it when Peter goes wrong.
As soon as that piano came out and she's walking, playing at the same time, like the audience goes crazy. And then at the end, everyone's like clapping, and then the stagehands came on and did like a curtain call. And it's just, you're watching, you're like, we're watching live theater. This is great.
I remember though, because of the understudy piano, the dummy piano with this dummy bench, there's in the top of Act 2, Ben and I are singing a song called Walking in the Rain, and then he turns me and puts me onto his lap and spins around, and I couldn't fit because the piano was the bench was too high, so Ben's like, it's not gonna work. And I was like, well, how do we figure it? I don't even remember what we did, but this...
Did you end up on my lap at all?
No, I don't think so. Yeah.
Look at each other lovingly.
As we do, we're good actors. There is one, this was my second show back. You've all heard the story. It's my second show my second show ever. And Jared Spector, who was in it before Ben, we were walking across this like massive, it looks like a balcony, you know, it's a pretty big part of our set. And it opened, yeah, you do get hazard pay. So it's up high, I kind of call it like the Evita balcony, and it opens and closes like with different scenes. So in this scene, Barry and I are walking up there, and he goes, okay, so it's 8:05, Donnie gets in at 8, we'll be fine, and then all of a sudden we're supposed to hear her singing Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow, and I say, what's that? And then we run into the other direction. Second show, we're walking up there, Jared's saying this line, and all of a sudden, a cue must have been called by the stage manager. It starts to open. So Jared was straddling it, and all of a sudden he says, and he jumps to one side, and I'm on the other side looking at him, and I'm thinking to myself, this is your second show. I only know to go off that way. So I just back up, and I leap over it, and run off stage. They called me Indiana Jones for a while. But I was like, and they were like, Jessica, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. And everyone was freaking out, and they're all really angry because it was a big mess up, and it could have been really bad. But I was just happy I'm just happy to be here.
Oh man, I feel like we could do like an entire hour just on the mishaps. Like Chilina, you've done this show 1,000 times?
Almost, yeah, getting there.
it's like within a few, 5 or 6. I mean, you're really about to celebrate that milestone,
I
right?
think so, yeah, I'm very close.
So obviously it's different every single time. So little mistakes like that'll happen. It's like that leap makes me wish that the shows were filmed. You know, just like I want to see that.
I have no idea what my face was doing at that moment. It could have just been,
You know what?
pure horror.
I feel like it was totally in character. I could see Cynthia.
Let's go with that.
Whatever it takes.
Absolutely. Just
Well,
like,
it's interesting too, if I may just for one
Yes.
second, because I think that the rules are different. I may be wrong on this, but I believe that the equity rules are different from country to country. And I think in Canada we have this rule that if you have an open space that's above a certain height, you have to have like a safety rail. But it's different in the US. And it's the same thing about like whether you can take guests on stage or not. In Canada, you're not allowed to take any guest on stage without a stage or a crew member being there. So it becomes a huge pain in the butt if you want to get people to tour backstage because you can't just do it without somebody being present. So anyway, there's all these little rules that are different. But I had an issue too on that balcony when I first joined. And my little purse clipped one of the music stands that was on top of the balcony, and it fell down onto the actors that were on the main deck, and that could have been a serious, and I'm not like saying, oh, hey, we should have a safety rail up there, but I'm just saying it is quite dangerous. I mean, the whole, like, Indiana Jones leap or the, something falling on your head, like, acting can be a really, dangerous thing sometimes, depending on what you're doing. I also did Lord of the Rings, the original Lord of the Rings in Toronto back in the day. And we had so many injuries on that show. We actually had people falling into the audience and like props being thrown into the crowd. I mean, like things happen all the time,
Well, that's the other thing about being on Broadway is like you don't realize that there are so many moving parts and elements that can kind of hinder your show. Like, I don't think costumes or the set designers thought about, we have all these tracks, which is where the piano goes and everything. Well, when you're wearing kitten heels and you have to run on stage and run into different scenes, that first 6 months, I was getting my heel caught in the tracks almost every show where I had to just leave my shoe there. So I'd have to do half the show. I'd have to do half the scene like without a shoe on. And I think when you told me, when Kara was in for me the last 6 months, she had the same issue, same problem. So cool.
I'm curious about this robot piano. I know, Chilina, you know how to play the piano, and I read that when you were like in the process of getting ready to take on this role, you learned Carole King's whole catalog on the piano, but you're not actually playing on the stage, is that correct?
Well, you're not hearing what I'm playing.
Right.
So some of the show I'm playing relatively accurately, and you're hearing what the musical director is playing, but we are so in sync because it needs to feel like one player. So they've got a camera that is trained on my fingers so that he and I can see each other at all times. And
There's a camera?
there's a camera, that's up, it's like up in the rafters, stage left. And it's fascinating because it's always on my finger so that he can see my hands whether I'm looking at him or not. But sometimes I cue the orchestra, sometimes he cues the orchestra, but we do work as a team, for the whole show.
So the piano has action, which means that the key is pressed down, but it doesn't make any sound.
That's right, yeah.
I was wondering, since it's a robot, as you said, whether it was actually like a player piano, that the key is pressed down whether you were touching them or not.
No, yeah, that would be interesting. No, it doesn't. It's just it's full of basically machinery where the strings would normally be, and so that's what makes it function. And then the grand piano is empty because it has to fly. So there's no way they could fly a full grand piano because it would just be way too heavy. So they've had to sort of strip it all on the inside and build just one that looks like a real grand piano so they can fly it up.
Awesome. What do you guys think about taking some audience questions? Yeah?
So I was on a Broadway cruise with Anika Larson, who was the original Cynthia Wilde, and Beautiful was not announced yet. And Cynthia told us on the cruise that she was about to show, that she'd be playing Cynthia Wilde, but she made us swear that we wouldn't tell anybody because she was signing the paper when she got off the cruise. At the same time, Anika was in a Seth Rudetsky off-Broadway show, and she had told Seth on the cruise she had to leave in 3 weeks to start rehearsals for Beautiful. So we get off the cruise and we go on a Broadway tour with this Broadway actress. And I said, I got some inside information. Anika is going to be leaving the Seth's show. It's not announced yet.
She made you promise not to
tell you not to
I didn't. I said, I can't tell you where she's going, but she's leaving the show. And this actress says, well, I'll just wait till it comes out in Variety. Which is amazing. And then the actress, we're going on the tour, and she passes the Brill building. And just did, and she's telling us all about how Carole and Cynthia and everyone was working and couldn't say a word, just couldn't say a word. So it was a really interesting combination to hear that. And Anika is wonderful.
That's great. Do you have a question?
Yeah. What was the casting process like for you guys in terms of auditioning, callbacks, doing research beforehand, getting to know the material?
You guys should probably each have. Actually, Ben, you haven't said anything in a while. Why don't we get your audition story?
Let's see. Well, I was out of town, so my first couple auditions were via videotape. So that was sort of uncomfortable.
VHS.
Yeah, yes, videotape. Yeah, I recorded on my iPhone. And sent those in, and they eventually said, we should have you come into the room. And I went in maybe twice, and singing all the material from the show, and then I did all the research I could once I found out I got it. I saw the show a bunch. I saw it when I was auditioning, and then I saw it right after I got it, and then I obviously, like the week I was rehearsing, saw it virtually every night. There's not a whole lot of literature out there about Mary Mann, so you just kind of like pick and choose what you can find on the internet and read from Carole's book, and do what you can. Yeah.
I went in, no, why did I go in first? I think I went in for Carole first, which I knew I wasn't right for. And I was like, I think I'm better for her best friend, but I'm an actor, I can be different. And I went in there and they were like, yeah, you're better for Cynthia. And I was like, okay. So then I went in for Cynthia and I read, but they didn't need anyone. So it was more just like Stephen Coppola, our casting director, just to kind of have him see me. And then they were casting the tour, and I'd just done the Les Mis tour, and I was like, I don't want to go back out on tour. And they were like, my agents were like, just go in and do it. So I went in, I had a great audition. It was down to me and another girl, and then they went, yeah, they're going with someone younger. And I went, okay, oh God. So they went with someone younger. She's really cute, was really cute. The woman, Erica Olsen, did she do the tour? Anyway. So yeah, my younger version of Mika, and then Anika was going on a maternity leave, and they needed someone, so then they called me back in, and then I ended up getting that, which has now bred an amazing, obviously 3-year relationship with the show. So needless to say, you never can tell what it could amount to, so you might as well just do your best and see what happens.
Do you remember what you sang for your audition?
There's not. So they have you come in with. I had to come in with songs from the show, so it was "He's Sure the Boy I Love" and "Happy Days Are Here Again."
What about you, Ben? What did you sing?
Yeah, I sang "Walking in the Rain" and what's the song I sang the second night? We Gotta Get Out of This Place.
Sing or scream?
I screamed my way into it.
I think my favorite of your numbers is when you do the at the end of Act 1,
You've lost that one.
You've lost it.
Well, yeah,
It's gotten really nuanced now.
No, it's so fun!
It's gotten nuanced. Well, Barry comes in complaining about the fact that the song sucks and he hates it so much. So I try to milk that for all it's worth.
Yeah. What was your audition process like, Chilina?
I have a long story. I'll just shorten it for you so that I don't keep you here for half an hour. But it was a little tragic at the beginning because this is a really good story after Jessica's because you never know what is going to happen. So basically, I had they were looking at me from the readings and the workshops on, and the timing never really worked out for me. And I basically got to the point where I was going to go for my final audition for Carole King herself for the original production. And I was doing Evangeline in Canada, and in Canada, the way that the system is, we don't get to originate roles or create brand new Canadian musicals very often, and this was one of the times that we were creating this brand new large-scale musical. And I was playing Evangeline, and I was doing it with the writer. The writer was also directing it, and he was investing his own money. So the fact that, I sat them down and I said, look, I've got this amazing opportunity to come in and do a final callback in New York. They want me there, I want to be there, I just want to know whether this could happen. And they said, no, you can't go. They said no, because, if you got the part, you would have to leave halfway through the run of the show, and we're relying on you, all the publicity, the press, all the work that we put into it up until now, you can't just leave us in the lurch. And I said, I completely understand. And so brokenheartedly, I said, I'm so sorry, I can't go. And my agents freaked out, and they were like, what is wrong with you? You have to go to this audition. This could be you know, a huge door opener for you. And I said, I can't do this to the company that has hired me. So that was that. And so I remember like weeping on my front stairs for like a good solid 2 hours. And I was like, oh my God, I'm never gonna know the chance. Oh my God, it's the perfect part. So what I did is normally I throw out all of my music and my sides, you know, from the audition, and I just kind of let it go and I move on to the next thing. But I kept my sides and my music and I hid it in a little corner of my bag. And so, you know, after Jesse was ready to go, they called me and they said, okay, we want you to come in and replace Jesse. And I was like, don't you do this to me if you're not serious. And they were like, we want you. We just have to come in and just as a, kind of like as a, you know, what do you call it? Like a rubber, like, you know, you have to put yourself on tape for Carole because she has to approve you. So almost 9 months pregnant, I flew down to New York City and I put myself on tape for Carole. And she, yeah, they gave me the job. So I was really, really excited about it. And it was a dream come true because I was really quite brokenhearted about not being able to do it.
And then what happened when you landed, when you came back?
Oh my God, yeah, so when I landed, I immediately went into labor, early labor. A, because of the flying, and B, because of the stress of it, because I just made it under the wire where you're not supposed to fly after a certain amount of weeks, right? For those of you who've had kids, like you're not supposed to fly after, I don't know, 36 weeks or something. So I think I was like 34 or 35. So immediately I started having like contractions on the street, and I was like, oh my God, what's going on? And I'm like, I think I'm having like Braxton Hicks, like fake contractions, and so I went to see my doctor. She's like, you're in labor. You're literally like all these centimeters dilated. You gotta like stick around. But anyway, it stopped, and I went and I ended up giving birth properly at the right time. But it was funny.
And she got the part. That is professionalism.
That's an amazing story. I didn't know that. Okay, so when you graduate from school and you start seeing friends book jobs, and sometimes it's the right thing at the right time, and you get a little annoyed because you feel like they got it a little too easily. You're like, wait a minute. This felt like that for me. It felt like this opportunity that came up that I was really fortunate, and it was the right time and the right thing. I was living in LA, and I was only planning on coming back for pilot season in New York to work with new agents. And about a week before I was supposed to come to New York, they said, we have an audition for you. You land February 1st, and this audition's supposed to be like the day before that. And I was like, well, I actually can't come early because I'm supposed to be, my partner at the time was going in for surgery, and I was like, I have to be there. And so they were like, okay, no worries. They'll just see you for the callback, which I don't know the casting director, I don't know the creative team, I don't know why. They were like, sure, just come to the callback. So I was like, well, if I'm going straight to the callback, I need to be incredibly prepared. I did one musical called Heather's the Musical. But suddenly people were like, you do musicals. I'm like, no, I don't.
I do now.
So I spent a lot of money working with people on the music because I had 4 days. And anyway, I flew in February 1st, and on February 2nd had the audition. And I went in, and you see all these guys who have clearly been auditioning together. Like they recognize people when you audition, didn't know anybody. I kind of dressed the part-ish, walked in, sang the music, which is something that I was uncomfortable with and I had to really work on. And I was like, all right, well, that's what I sound like when I'm nervous. Cool. Then did the scenes and felt really good about that. So it came out, and I was kind of like, I think, they're like, wait here. And when they say wait here, they go in, and they're either going to come out and say, thank you so much, or they'll be like, hey, come talk to me. So I'm like, I think they're going to come say, like, hey, come talk to me. So they come out and like, hey, come talk to me. They're like, you're in town now, right? And I was like, actually, I just found out on the flight over that I booked a TV show in LA, and I had to fly back the next day. It was a great day, you guys. I'd been unemployed. It was like my last week of unemployment. And I was like, no, I'm sorry, I have to fly back on Friday. And I made sure in the room to say that I was good friends with Jessica, because we had done Heather's together. So I'm leaving, and all of a sudden I get a phone call from my agent, and they're like, they want to see you in 30 minutes after the audition. I was like, okay. So I ran back, and I rent a room next door to the audition room, to like work on the music. I just wanted to be close by in case they needed me. And I get a text from Jessica, and she's like, they're asking about you.
Yeah.
They texted me. I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. So I go in for a camera and the director, and not really anybody else, and to work on the music. And then I hear nothing, but then, because Jessica's a good friend, I kept getting updates from Jessica. You're the only one they're considering. Carole has to approve your tape. And that was the moment. It felt like, oh my God, I think I booked this job. And it was really cool to have Jessica be such a big part of that process.
So you didn't take the TV show?
Yeah, what happened with the TV show?
So, you guys, it was amazing.
You were going to be McDreamy, or
Well,
what were you going to be?
so I did the TV show.
Which TV show was it?
Well, so it was Jane the Virgin. Yeah. So I play her editor in the 3rd season. I played douchey parts a lot. So no, it was actually it was so cool. I got the job, beautiful. I started rehearsals. Our days off are Monday. Jane the Virgin was willing to shoot all my scenes on Monday. So I would do the Sunday matinee, miss the Sunday night, take a red eye, land, and at 5 a.m. have a costume fitting, shoot all day, take the red eye back, sleep in the dressing room, and do the Tuesday night show.
Oh my God.
And I had the greatest time of my life. I was like, I have 2 jobs. I had 0 jobs. Like, what do you want? No money. Yeah, it was pretty awesome.
It sounds like you guys are all doing different versions of Living the Dream, and I am obsessed with it. We only have a couple minutes left, so I would love to have you each talk about a favorite moment in the show. I'm not gonna say the favorite moment, because I understand it probably changes, and that there are probably multiple moments that you love. But right now, a moment that you're particularly attached to in Beautiful, the Carole King Musical. You don't look ready to answer, Ben. He's going.
I'm sure. I always just really love. This has nothing to do with me. My favorite little moment is when I'm laying on the couch, pretending to be sleeping, and she starts playing "Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow?" because she starts, and you're not sure what she's playing, and then you can hear the audience realize what she's playing, and that happens. You just feel this sort of wave of memory. Everyone has a particular memory of what that song means to them, and it's just like this audible, oh, that's what she's singing. And it's a really cool moment. It's the moment you realize how powerful Carole King's music is in the memory of everyone who's ever experienced it.
That song was on the first mixtape I ever received. So I totally audibly went, oh, and I got the shirt that says "Will You Still Love Me Tomorrow" on it. Yeah, so I am the other side of that, sitting in there remembering.
To be honest, that's my favorite moment too. My other favorite moment, just the sheer spectacle kind of way, is the Cherelle quick change when they go from, so when they go from sure, we'll sing your song to behind the panel, then they're like, tonight, it's so how did they do that?
Mine has always been the end of the show when Carole, it's after when she's singing Beautiful, and at the end it was when you go, as you feel, and she's just rocking out on the piano, and there's all these arpeggios, she's just doing crazy stuff, and at the end it's like a big rumble and then a huge, it's just such a great end to a show that's not, all spectacle and fireworks. It's like one woman being like, I did this, I survived, and I conquered the world, and I literally get chills. It's rare that I see it, because I'm backstage getting ready to bow. But when I have caught it, it's so magical. So magical.
Well, you picked other people's moments. I was going to pick my moment.
Do it!
We already kind of touched on it, but it's that love and feeling moment where when I first joined the show, it caused me so much anxiety for some reason. I was like, I don't know if it's... yes. Jessica's making fun of me because I have a lot of anxiety all the time about everything.
He's the entire cast of Seinfeld in one.
That's the best description of anyone I've ever heard.
But it turned from a moment of total anxiety to a moment that I kind of have learned to have fun with. Yeah. So to just go through that progression over the course of being with the show in 2 years, I look back and think I don't know, you can learn something from this, I guess.
Yeah. Are you on social media at all? You were the only one I couldn't find on Twitter.
Yeah. I'm there. I'm not active.
Okay. What are your social media handles?
At Ben M. Jacoby, both on Instagram and Twitter.
And Jessica?
At JK Wynn, W-Y-N.
At Chilina Kennedy.
At Evan Todd here.
Evan Todd was barely taken.
I'm at BroadwayGirlNYC and follow the show at Beautiful on B-Way. Thanks guys for being here. Have a great Broadway Con.